People are just more interested, right, in discovering ways to feel better, live longer, these kinds of things. And cold plunging offers significantly a lot more than just recovery. The benefits are relentlessly the same. I mean, they do not have this depreciating curve. It's not this energy drink. It's not this outside supplement. It's almost like part of nature that's doing it, and it delivers that same experience. You gain a level of respect with yourself, and so now you trust yourself. So when you say, I'm going to go take a cold plunge, and you actually do it, you start to build this trust with yourself, and now you can actually rely on yourself to do the thing you told yourself you're going to do. There has been some small studies done that show a very, very impactful and like immediate increase in the amount of weight and the amount of reps people are able to do, like specifically right after doing a cold plunge.
Welcome to the Superhuman Blueprint podcast.
Welcome, my friends, to the Superhuman Blueprint podcast. I am your host, Drew Griesel of Primal Wellness Coaching. Today, we get to chat with Kyle Ponton. Kyle is the co-founder of The Cold Life, a company that makes a fantastic cold plunge, the one that I personally use every single day. A few years ago, he co-founded The Cold Life, and he did this because he himself fell in love with cold plunging. And something that Kyle and I both very much have in common, Kyle is an advocate for doing hard, challenging things. So we're going to chat all about the very hard, challenging thing of voluntarily getting in cold water. Kyle, welcome to the Superhuman Blueprint podcast.
Thank you for having me, Drew. Happy to be here.
Kyle, you're a business guy, but we're here talking about cold plunging. So how did that happen? Like, how did you go from being a B2B corporate business guy, and obviously you're still doing the business side of the cold life,
Sure.
But cold plunging is very specific. So how did you get into cold plunging?
It's a great question, man. So the very first cold plunge that I ever took, I went on a vacation with my fiance at the time. We are based here in Atlanta. There's a hotel in Asheville, North Carolina, called the Omni Grove Park Inn, and they have a in-ground cold plunge there as part of their spa. And
Cool.
It was my first time doing it, and I fell in love. Absolutely, was obsessed. And shortly after that, in Atlanta, I've always been a big part of building community, being a part of community, and so we've always done different kind of local events centered around like health or fitness or different studies around personal development and things of that nature. And so we've got a really big group here in Atlanta that I've led in some regard and also been a part of. And so we started hosting these kind of what I would call like cold plunge, community groups. And so we would do them during the winter times when it was really cold outside and we had access to pools. And we skipped around from a couple pools and got kicked out of a few because eventually it got to where we had 60, 70 people showing up on a Sunday morning at 8 o'clock in the morning to hit the cold weather or hit the water while it was cold. And I can't
believe you got that many people to get together to jump in cold water. That's amazing.
It was crazy, man. It just started off with a couple friends, and then it just grew from there. I mean, everyone kind of invited a friend, invited somebody else, and then it just grew. I mean, it just grew to where we had a lot of people going. And so I personally loved doing it. I was so I loved everything about it. And I got to experience so many first timers doing it, and I got to experience the benefits and the excitement of what it's like to do cold plunging in a community setting. And that just, fired me up. And so that's kind of how I got my journey started. It was a few years back, right before COVID. And then as I started doing some different things and started looking at some different opportunities, I really wanted to tackle something that I had a lot of big passion for. And I still love business. I still love strategy. I still love figuring things out. I mean, that's really my knack. But I love cold plunging and I love doing hard things. And so this was kind of like a perfect marry of the two of like, wow, I can really bring some of my skill sets into a space and into an arena that is married with things that I love to do. And not only do I love doing it, but I love seeing people try it for the first time and love people seeing like get in it. I love seeing you post about it. I mean, the stories are they're meaningful, they're impactful, they're fulfilling. And so it's definitely a different level of strategy and business and fun doing it in cold plunging versus, selling products and services in the B2B space.
Yeah, that's incredible. You get the best of both worlds, right? You get to do the business, but then you also get to help people and introduce
Yeah,
people to this thing that you're passionate about that is actually physically and mentally beneficial for them.
it's so good, man. It's so good. I love it. I mean, I couldn't ask for a better season of life right now. Everything goes through seasons, so I can't say this will last forever. But this is just I'm on a high right now in life. I mean, it's just it's amazing right
Well, getting cold will do that to you.
now.
And
It helps.
it helps. In advance of this conversation, I was trying to think about my first cold plunge, and I thought it was 3 years ago, but then I thought a little harder and dug deep and actually realized it was actually probably about 11 or 12 years ago. I was staying in Japan for a little bit and staying with a Japanese buddy of mine over there out in kind of middle of nowhere. And his big thing is going to the onsen, the Japanese hot spring. So we would go to a lot of onsen. And yeah, the first time I cold plunge was at one of those. You get in the hot spring and you get in the sauna and then you get in the cold. And he was like, yeah, get out of the sauna, go jump in this cold water. And I didn't know anything about cold plunging. I was not really into like wellness yet. And
Sure.
it seemed pretty nuts to me. I was like, why are we doing this? This is really uncomfortable. I did not
Yo.
stay in the cold for very long. But it actually felt pretty cool going between the hot and the cold. And then I really never thought about it again. And then so I, in addition to health and wellness and fitness, I also train martial arts. So I train in and teach Krav Maga. You have any familiar with Krav Maga?
A little bit. I'm familiar with what it is, but I haven't studied it.
Okay. Yeah. No worries. Yeah. So a little under 3 years ago, I had my my final black belt test. And it's brutal. It's 12-13 hours long overnight. And so I bought a cheap like cold plunge tub on Amazon, like $40 or something. You put the sticks in it and it's just kind of plastic or whatever. So I just bought it and I gave it to, I forget who, someone at the studio. And I just said, hey, set this up and fill it up and put some ice in it for me when I'm done. And yeah, so at I think 7 or 8 in the morning when the test finished, I got in the cold plunge and I felt like that. I don't think I was in there more than a minute. I didn't time it, but that minute was harder than the entire like 11, 12 hours before that. Yeah. But I did not get sore. And that was really weird to me. Because it's nonstop movement for an extremely extended period of time during a time when I would normally be completely sedentary.
It's crazy. It's very eye-opening too. When you go through an experience like that, you start to see like what the power of cold plunging really can do for you. One of the really interesting things that I found that I personally was really not expecting. Just because I'm big into wellness, I'm big into biohacking. I'm always, trying new things, looking for new things. I know you're similar. And so, a lot of times, like especially growing up and even still, I still struggle with it now. Thankfully, cold plunging has helped dramatically. But like caffeine or energy drinks or coffee has always been, kind of a crutch for me. And so I'm always looking for
as
ways
I'm sitting here sipping my coffee.
Yeah, I'm looking for ways to get off of it as much as I can. I mean, I wish I have some friends that are, very gun ho on some of these things, and they can just cut it cold turkey, and they do a great job. And I'm not far behind them. But one of the things that I found just impressive was there wasn't like everything else I've tried. It's coffee, energy drinks, nootropic gums, or this or that, or whatever the case may be. There seems to be like a kind of a depreciating curve. So it's like you find this thing, you try it, you're like, this is the best thing ever. And then a couple days, couple weeks, couple months, whatever it may be, you start to kind of find that fall off where it doesn't start to have the same effect on you. And it has now been almost 3 years for me. I have not cold plunged every day, but I've cold plunged close to darn near every day, if not cold plunged in cold water if I didn't have one near me. And the benefits are relentlessly the same. I mean, they do not have this depreciating curve. I still feel the same way as I felt that first time, which to me is just like almost like, you know, divine, if you will. It's just one of those things that's not quite, you know, it's not this energy drink, it's not this outside supplement. It's almost like part of nature that's doing it, and it delivers that same experience. It's almost like sunlight, right? You go on a walk for 10 minutes and you're never going to not enjoy a 10-minute walk getting in the sun. It always kind of rejuvenates you in that same way. And cold plunging has done the same, which to me was one of the like kind of more shocking things in my experience, because I just felt like everything else, there'd be some kind of appreciating curve. Like I'd do it for a couple of months, and then eventually I'd be like, this isn't really giving me the same benefit. I don't really feel as good anymore. It's a high. I don't feel the high anymore. And no, it's just delivers consistently every time.
Well, what's cool is it's not a substance, right? A substance you can build a resistance to, or it can plateau and how it impacts you. But the cold plunge is creating an actual hormonal response, and it's a measurable hormonal response. And you know, you can become accustomed to the cold, but what it does to your body doesn't, like you said, it doesn't change.
It doesn't change.
They're not diminishing benefits. Like I can get in the cold plunge much longer now than I could when I first started cold plunging. It's still cold, but my tolerance has gone up. But the way it makes me feel, you know, if anything has gotten better because I stay in longer than I did when I started. But it certainly hasn't plateaued, and it hasn't gone down by any measure.
No. And for me, I you know, maybe just because repetition, I have less, maybe less negotiating with myself before I do it, before I really make that step and get in there. But besides that, man, the thought's still there. Never am I getting into the cold plunge and I'm just like, this is going to be easy. This is perfect. It's every time I have that, there's always that slight hesitation of just like, this is going to be really cold right now. Like, this is going to be tough. And it's been that way for the whole time. And so, which, you know, goes into other benefits, but it's just part of the other reason why I do it. It's never easy to do. It's always hard. It's always tough. It's always challenging. And it's like, that's just, you know, that's my oxygen, is doing these things, you know?
My self-negotiation this morning was just a little bit shorter because you and I were going to chat. I was like, I'm going to talk to Kyle later. I got to just get in. So I did my 5 minutes this morning.
I love it. Yeah, I did mine. I'm about 40, between 44, 47. I do 3 minutes, sometimes 3:30. That's all I do. I found that's kind of my sweet spot. Anything past that, I tend to, I just kind of be cold for too long after that. Yeah. Like my body just kind of tends to kind of be colder. So I find 3 minutes, 3:30 is kind of my sweet spot. And then, you know, we have a hot product as well on one of our consumer products, which I believe is the one you have. I don't recall, but one of our machines goes hot. And so inside of our studio, we have a cold one and a hot one right next to each other, which is, you know, not something that I do every day, or certainly not in the mornings because it's almost more zen. But that like 6:30, 7 o'clock, you're ready to go home, you're ready to kind of relax time frame, and you're looking for just kind of that, you know, relaxer. It's almost like a treatment, if you will, how I experience it. You know, I'll do a cold and a hot one back and forth. So I'll do like, you know, 5 and 5, and then like 3 and 3, and then kind of end it off with like maybe a couple minutes in the hot, and then I'll just kind of go slosh myself back into the cold for a quick dip. And man, I'll tell you what, I know there's a lot of benefits there, and the science on that is you know, more being studied, you know, but that has certainly been, like you mentioned in your story, the first time you did it over in Japan, you know, Finland, over in the other side of the world. This hot and cold thing has been a part of their culture. It's been like this for centuries. I mean, they've been doing hot and cold for a very long time. So, you know, like I said, there's still studies to go there, but I feel it's a different feeling. It's not your regular cold plunging, and it's certainly not something I recommend doing every day. But it's almost like I almost treat it like a treatment, like a massage, you're going to go get this thing done. That's how I look at it. It's like a 30-minute, 40-minute dedicated session, and I feel just relaxed coming out of that.
Yep. Yeah, and I've actually just recently started to incorporate in kind of piping hot showers before I plunge sometimes, not every day.
Interesting.
Usually I go into the plunge early in the morning. So I'm a parent. I have 2 little kids. I try to get up early enough to get some things done for myself before everyone else starts waking up. So that usually has me up pretty early because my kids wake up
Sure.
early. And so in the interest of time, I crank through all the things that I do, and that's when I do all my biohacking and all that,
I
including
love
my
it.
plunge. But when I'm plunging, maybe in the afternoon or a little bit later, and I'm not kind of in that rush to just crank through everything, I'll go and I'll take a 5 or 7 minute piping hot shower. Because I want to go and clean anyway, right? Just in the interest of
Yeah,
preserving my filter life. I don't want to,
of
and
course.
having clean water in there. I just don't want to like bring all my oils and sweats and
Sure.
deodorant and all that of the day in with me. And
Of course.
first thing in the morning is fine, but once I've been up and at it for a while, I like to go and clean. So anyway, going to the point where I take this shower to the point where it's got me sweating, and then I'll go plunge, and it it's still a shock. It's still really cold, but it's just a little bit more tolerable. And actually, the
It
other
is.
day, uh, my average plunge is between 4 and 6 minutes, so I average out
Okay.
around 5 minutes. The longest I ever did before was 7 minutes, and then on just a couple days ago, I was in there and I did the hot shower, and I ended up staying in for 10 minutes just to see if it was fine,
Wow.
and it was fine.
Yeah.
I it comes with a little like scrubbing sponge, so I have my routine when I'm in there. So I take the sponge and I go in a circle and I wipe down the inside because it gives me something to do. It keeps
Yep.
me a little busy.
Yep.
Keeps me from building up that thermal layer around me, so it stays nice and cold. And then after I'm done with that, I'll just sit there and do breath work.
That's amazing.
And the breath work, it keeps me going. So that's kind of what it was. Like I wiped the inside and then I just started doing the breath work, and I'm like, all right, I got it down to where I take 2 breaths per minute in my
That's
breath work.
awesome. And
And
to touch on that, sorry to interrupt you, but to touch on that, I'm curious to ask you that question. I don't know if you've ever done a different style of plunge. Obviously, ours being more of a barrel approach, but one of the kind of philosophies we had when we went to go design this product was a big part of cold plunging is finding your breath, especially when you get in. But when you as you're in there, it's even it's a whole other experience if you can do some breath work while you're in the middle of it. I find that in our plunge specifically, it's awesome to be able to do breath work because you're just kind of crouched and you don't really close up that diaphragm with the legs up. I don't know if you got a similar experience.
so I've never cold plunged in the kind of bathtub style plunge.
Right.
And specifically, well, one, I haven't just been in a situation where I had access to one of those.
Sure.
And part of the reason that I selected your plunge is because I liked the design. I wanted the more barrel type design.
Yeah.
For several reasons, including what you just said.
Yeah.
But yeah, the breath work just carried me through, and I got out at 10 minutes because I'm like, all right, that's probably long enough. I don't know. I don't want to, not be able to feel my toes for multiple hours. But yeah, it
Yep.
was
Yeah.
cool.
Hypothermia can get you at some point. There's
Right.
because there's so much social media attention around cold plunging. There's obviously these incredibly talented comedians and memes and things of that nature out there. And I saw one the other day that really did crack me up, and it was something about the Titanic, and it was like they were like super healthy for like 20 minutes. And I mean, it was just one of those things that it just got me going. It's funny, but yeah, I think the duration there is less, at least in my opinion, the duration is less important than the consistency of more daily or every other day, or finding some kind of consistency in doing it versus,
Yep.
I did a 20-minute cold plunge. It's like, it's good. It's kind of like the same thing with workout. It's like you went and did this crazy workout, and it's like you do that once a month, that's not going to be as good as if you just go do, 3 small workouts a week. The consistency there is going to be more powerful.
Yeah, I totally agree. My wife gets in, and I think she got up to like 2.5 minutes was her longest that she was able to be in there. And I'm like, hey, that's awesome.
Amazing.
If you
That's
get in
awesome.
for 1 minute, that's awesome.
That's amazing. Yeah, 100%, man. You got to start somewhere. Cold showers is a great way to start too. It doesn't. I don't think. I know Wim Hof did a study. Don't quote me on this, but I think it was like something like 65, 70% of the metrics that he was at least kind of looking for and measuring got a similar benefit to cold plunging.
Okay.
I believe that's the number. Don't quote me on that, but I will say, obviously, my preference is to do a cold plunge. I love cold plunging, and there is in my opinion, a pretty, big swing, right, from the way you feel coming out of a plunge and the way you come out of a shower. But it's a great place to start. And, whether it's, you can't get a cold plunge, don't have space for a cold plunge, aren't near a cold plunge, whatever the case may be. I mean, a cold shower is most people have access to a cold shower. Most
Yeah.
people can get into a cold shower. And so it's an amazing way to start, and just find out if you like it. You'll get some of those benefits. You'll feel some similar way. And it's a good way to start kind of, leaning more into is something you want to take seriously.
That's I was doing the cold showers for a few years before I finally took the plunge, so to speak, and bought my cold plunge.
Yeah,
And
that's awesome.
that's still what I do when I travel. I take my showers, but every shower ends cold.
That's amazing, man. That's incredible. That's the way to go.
And I start out my day that way too. For example, I was in New York a couple weeks ago, and yeah, before I would head out in the morning, and it was 30 degrees in the morning, but I would take that cold shower before I'd go out. And like you said, for me it is a substitute for caffeine. I still drink coffee.
Yeah.
Mostly I drink either half caffeinated if I can get it, or decaf because I just love coffee. But
Yeah.
but yeah, nothing sharpens my mind like freezing my butt off for a couple of minutes.
Seriously. I mean, we joke about it too, but every time I go to I'm traveling, which has been frequently lately, and every time I'm in a different city, I mean, the first thing I'm doing on the plane or when we're getting there, before we get there, I'm Googling places. Hey, where can I find a cold plunge?
Oh, good
And,
for
I mean,
you.
I'm looking at hotels saying, hey, let's get a hotel that's close to this place because I got a cold plunge there. So if I can find it near me, I'm people know I'm going to find a cold plunge. It's on my Instagram every time I joke about it. Like, oh, found a cold plunge here. I'll
Nice.
figure out a way to get in one.
That's awesome. And actually, kind of tracking back a little bit to something you mentioned earlier, just kind of about the benefits of making that decision to do the hard thing, right? Like every day you kind of have to do that, a little bit of that self-talk to force yourself to get in. I saw a podcast recently, a Huberman Lab podcast, conversation between Andrew Huberman and David Goggins. And Huberman was talking about this mechanism within the brain, and this is real science that they've discovered, where you actually experience brain growth of this specific part of the brain by doing things that you don't want to do. By doing hard things, you can experience measurable brain growth. But what's interesting is if you are given the opportunity to do the hard thing and you decide not to, you can actually reduce the size of that part of your brain. Yeah, so I think about that sometimes when I'm in my self-talk, right? Like, no, got to keep growing.
Yeah, no, it's
No going backwards.
all the day. Yeah, 100%. I think it's. I did not know there's real research behind that. I'd be interested to go back and watch that.
Yeah, that was new. So when at the time that he was going over that with David Goggins, like that was new research. So, and that was probably only within the last couple of months. One of the most simple hacks to improve your overall quality of life, including things like energy, immunity, mood, and more, is to get better sleep. And I am going to help you sleep better completely free. The thing is, sleep is easy to ignore. Life gets busy and sleep loses priority. There's a problem though. Where many of you want to sleep better, you can't seem to. The thing is, so many things have become a part of a normal lifestyle in our society, which are secretly sabotaging many aspects of our wellness, including sleep. That is why I created the Hack Your Sleep program. In this program, I am going to give you a number of low to no cost, simple to implement hacks you can start doing right now to fix your sleep. By using these tips and hacks, you will fall asleep easier, stay asleep longer, and most importantly, sleep deeper, allowing your body to cycle through the many stages of sleep multiple times throughout the night. That is how recovery happens. That is how you wake up feeling rested, energized, and ready to unleash your best self. And because you're a Superhuman Blueprint podcast listener, I am going to give you access to this course completely free. Go to hackyoursleep.net and use code SUPERHUMAN at checkout. That is hackyoursleep.net. Superhuman at checkout. This will get you 100% off and on the path to getting better sleep than you've had since you were a kid.
Tony Robbins, who I've followed for a while, he talks about that because he's been cold plunging, for a few decades now. He's kind of one of the OG cold plungers out there. And that is something he talks about a lot, specifically in relation to cold plunging, is negotiating with yourself. And he talks about those small mental jumps that you make in that decision making. And so
Mm-hmm.
he talks a lot about the power of not negotiating with himself when it comes to the cold plunge. So one of the things he talks about is says when he every single day for the past whatever it's been, he gets up and goes into his cold plunge. And he says early on he negotiated. He would wait a few minutes. He would think. He would try to whatever, look at his phone, whatever the case may be. And now it's one of those things where he just doesn't negotiate. And so whether you kind of remove the emotion towards what you're feeling right then, and you just go and do it. And that has been a really interesting thing for me as well, because it's just like anything else, but it translates, right? I mean, if you negotiate with yourself on cold plunging just for a few minutes, it kind of trickles into some other things. Maybe there's a task you need to do. Maybe there's, relationships, life, a conversation you need to have. Maybe you're saying, you just kind of pause a little bit. And it does become, a little bit a part of your psyche versus when you completely just say, I'm not negotiating with myself. I'm just going to do it. You gain a level of respect with yourself. And so now you trust yourself. So when you say, I'm going to go take a cold plunge and you actually do it, you start to build this trust with yourself. And now you can actually rely on yourself to do the thing you told yourself you're going to do. And so I don't know the science behind that, but I know the personal experience behind that one. And I've lived both sides of that coin. And I can tell you that the doing what you say you're doing, what you tell yourself you're going to do, is extremely impactful and powerful, not just in health and doing, cold plunging and things like that, but really in life.
Yeah. And conceptually that idea has been around and it's pretty hard for a lot of people to grasp. And it's kind of cool that now there's some actual like measurable data behind the science of that concept.
That's amazing. That's awesome.
So cold plunging has a number of benefits. And I think the most common one that people would associate cold plunging with is reduction of muscle soreness, because people have been hearing about or seeing athletes doing this for forever. I think about my first, time I saw that this ice bath was even a thing was as a kid watching the movie Major League, and Tom Berenger played like the older guy that was always sore after every game, and they had a couple of shots in the locker room and they're dumping ice in the metal tub he's sitting in.
That's awesome.
Man, that looks absolutely terrible. But
yeah,
athletes have been using ice baths and ice forever for recovery. And mechanistically it works very similar to just using an ice pack, right? Like it can reduce inflammation and thus it can reduce soreness and swelling and all that.
Yes. No, exactly. And I think, if you go back and look at the history of cold plunging, obviously, maybe give it 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, maybe it's certainly gained a wild amount of attention. And I think with attention to anything comes scrutiny, but also on the flip side, positive research behind what these things are doing. And so I know even to today, there's a lot of studies out there. Some of them are still limited and small in their nature, but there's a lot more research and development. I mean, even our company has been reached out to by several legitimate institutions, right, that are doing studies right now on the benefits of cold plunging. And so I would say, athletes were kind of a pioneer, if you will. Maybe, if you go all the way back, maybe, like I said, the Eastern European or Eastern side of the world is really the
for those
pioneers,
folks, it was
really.
just lifestyle. Yeah.
Yeah, they I think, hold the torch on that. But at least in an American sense, I would say athletes really drove the demand or drove the attention towards cold plunging for the past couple decades, strictly for, though, that recovery. And that was really all it was quite known for, was recovery. It didn't have a lot of other sentiment behind it. Even culturally, it wasn't one, it was recovery. That's kind of what it was. And so now, over the past 5 years, which really just kind of goes into the overarching trend of where wellness is going and where health is going as a whole. But I think people are just more interested, right, in discovering ways to feel better, live longer, these kinds of things. And cold plunging, I think, offers significantly a lot more than just recovery. I think recovery is one of the great things, but it's not the only reason I do it. It's probably recovery is probably third for me on the list, like third or fourth. It does help with that. I mean, I'm active in the gym, but I mean, there's nothing more than, for me, it's mood, It's enhancement. I mean, there's nothing. I mean, like I said, I've tried all the nootropics. I've tried all those things. It doesn't even come cold. It's not even on the same radar as cold plunging. It doesn't even touch it, for me at least, in my experience. The mood enhancement I get from that, mental clarity I get from that, and like I've talked to a lot of people who struggle with, whether it be like in the addict, world, in the addiction world, people who are depressed, people who struggle with, just finding some sense of purpose, or they're just kind of a low mood. Cold plunge is just, I mean, like I said, there's few things out there that I have seen have that type of transformation in people's life.
Yeah.
And so that's why, I mean, even, being part of this company, being able to be a part of leading it, I just feel, grateful, because it does have such an impact on not only the high performers who are looking for that extra edge, who are really looking to kind of, get that extra bit out of life. It's also just, it's pulling people out of slumps. It's pulling people, it's transforming people's lives in a way that I've never, seen anything else quite do.
Yeah, and in support of that, I was actually just listening to a Ben Greenfield podcast this morning, and he was talking about how cold plunging and sauna and hormetic stressors can benefit people that are addicts and are trying to come out of addiction.
Yes. Yeah, it's huge. It's incredible for that world.
And something I pulled up that I just thought it'd be kind of fun to share. So from PubMed, from the National Library of Medicine, I found this abstract talking about, they looked at 104 different studies on cold water immersion therapy, and kind of the overall theme here is cold water immersion seems to reduce and or transform body adipose tissue, that's fat, as well as reduce insulin resistance and improve insulin sensitivity, which may have a protective effect against cardiovascular, obesity, and other metabolic diseases. And it could have preventative health effects. So I thought that was pretty cool, because that's moving into the realm of like actual sickness, right? Like physical sickness.
Sure. Like being able
100%. Being able to improve your ability to manage insulin. That's huge for a lot of people.
Massive. It's massive. I would encourage too. One of the big things I talk about with a lot of my peers and friends in the industry is, don't take me for my word on this 100%, but within reason, I think, cold plunging kind of falls into this category. Fortunately, it's got a lot of attention right now, where there's more behind it, but a lot of things, I at least encourage people to, trust more of their intuition and what they feel, at least from a trial or testing perspective, versus needing, not that it's bad, but needing some scientific data to show them, hey, this is exactly what it is. That scientific data is great, and obviously with where we're at today, it moves so fast that I think we're getting it now. So I'm grateful for that as a cold plunge company owner. I think that's great. But, it's still one of those things where, I would consider it on the verge of taboo, right? Maybe it's still like, if you have those family members, people, whatever, that maybe aren't into the health and wellness world, they're gonna be like, you do what? Like, you get into cold water, like on purpose? Like, they're still in that world where I think it takes a lot. It does take the science, it does take that, but it also takes people kind of taking that leap of faith, listening to their body, listening to their intuition, and trying these things. And I say it all the time for sicknesses and immune systems, but I mean, I do it all the time, and I rarely get sick. I won't say I never get sick, but I rarely get sick. And I think cold plunging has a lot to do with that. It has significant to do with that. So it won't surprise me that as time goes on, there will be a lot more studies, a lot more even from some official institutions that come out that I think might kind of turn the page for some people that were maybe hesitant on it. And that's really part of, even our mission as a company. We always try to say, like, we want to make cold plunging cool. We want to make cold plunging part of culture. Because 60, 70, 80-ish years ago, if you were to walk around and look for a gym, it was tough to find. There just wasn't a gym available. It wasn't really even part of society in a way like it is today. Now today you walk in pretty much any city and you're going to find a gym in every single corner. And I think health and wellness, specifically cold plunging as a niche within that, has that trajectory going for it. I think there will be, thousands of wellness centers and studios and gyms and spas, et cetera, all across not only America, but across the world, that really hone in on this, benefit of what it is, and really start to offer this more as a service to people. And so we always, kind of joke about, like, we want to be the company, right, that kind of merges, culture and maybe just, you don't have to be like a wellness junkie, right, to
Right.
take a cold plunge. You don't have to be an absolute, stud of an athlete to be cold plunging. You can just be a normal person. You can just be the person who's just whatever it is doing life, and you're looking for that extra edge. You're trying to feel better, and we want to talk to those people as well. Maybe even the partiers out there, whatever it may be, to try to start to kind of introduce these things into a different demographic and into a different crowd. Is a big part of our mission, just because the more people, we believe in it so much. So like the more people we can get introduced to it, we know once they try it, once they're on it, you're hooked. You can't get into a cold plunge and really not love it. There's very few people, I would say, who have done a cold plunge, at least in our experience, come here, tried it out at our warehouse, bought one, customers, etc., that have done this thing and be like, it was a fad, I don't want to do it no more. It's like, no, it's transformed people's lives.
Yeah, you can't fake the way you feel after you do it. You can certainly get hung up on the way you feel at the idea of doing it, but it's quite the disparity, between the idea and the actual act.
Agreed.
I invite everyone to get in my cold plunge, and almost nobody does. And I've had people tell me, I've had people tell me I will literally die if I get in your cold plunge. I'm like, well, you probably won't die, and you might actually be healthier when you get out of it. It might actually help you to live longer if you get in.
Yes. So exactly. Exactly.
That self-talk and that narrative is important, folks. Tell yourself to do hard things, and you might be a healthier person that lives longer and is happier.
1,000%. And just to touch on that too, doing a cold plunge is hard. Period. Doing a cold plunge by yourself is extra hard. And I think if there's, that's why I really believe in like kind of the wellness studio concept for a lot of these businesses out there that are really, incorporating it into their facilities, because if you can just get community involved with the act of cold plunging, I think that really kind of, just like anything else, it really revolutionizes and transforms the experience from like this weird thing you're doing in your closet or your garage or your area where you're like, oh, this sucks, and it's so easy to negotiate yourself out of it, to, all right, I've got my friends doing it, I'm doing it with other people, there's maybe some breath work going on, they're going to tell me what to do, how to do this, that kind of thing. And I just think it really transforms the experience for the individual, especially for the first time. Because it's like, like I said, it's more culture. It's more like, okay, like this is what people are doing now, right? It's kind of like a workout class or that, kind of category of things where it's like, okay, this is more normal. And so we really want to, as much as we can, partake in making this, part of culture, part of a normal thing to do, not so in this left field taboo type, thing out there.
Yep. And I've seen on social media for the Cold Life that a lot of gyms have your products in them. The CrossFit studio where I used to work out, they have a cold plunge now. And to what you're saying, it's a great setting for that, right? Because you're in this place around other people that are interested in the same thing as you and are interested in performance and recovery and being healthy. And especially if it's something like a CrossFit class, you go get in after class and you got everyone else that's still there, cheering you on, right? And
it's incredible.
And maybe you're motivated to stay in that extra 20 seconds or whatever.
100%. It's very similar to classes, right? It's why all these boutique studios have blown up, past 10 years, 15 years. We're in talks even with some of the larger franchises who are really, I don't want to put their names out there for the sake of keeping it private, but there's some studios out there that you would think, wow, like those guys are looking into putting a cold plunge in there. It's really kind of stapling, okay, this is here. Like, we're here now, right? It's not just this weird taboo thing that Kyle and Drew are doing in their basements. We are now at a standpoint where, like, okay, there's enough kind of attention and demand out there for something like this, where you've got people that, would make a significant impact in introducing this to a new community are really considering it.
Yep, absolutely. And I just want to talk a little bit more about a couple of the sciencey things, and then we can move on.
Sure.
But something that I thought was interesting, and this is kind of newly out, is it's advised for folks that are, if you're going to be doing a cold plunge in proximity to a workout, for people that want to build muscle, to stimulate muscle hypertrophy, it's now advised to do the plunge before the workout instead of after. which was very interesting to me. So as a recovery mechanism, yeah, you do it after, but if you're looking to build muscle, you do it before. And there's something in the effect of the cold plunge that actually slows down your body's ability to stimulate muscle hypertrophy. So you want to do the cold plunge before. And actually, that's how I do it in the morning. And I'm not because I'm trying to grow big muscles, but mostly because working out warms me up, right? So I do my red light in the morning, which gets me a little warm. I get in the cold plunge, and then I'm cold, so then I work out, which warms me back up. But I've noticed just in my personal experience that I'm able to push myself a little bit harder. I don't know if it's just because I'm numb or just because I really want to move faster and harder to get my body warm, if it's just entirely a mental thing or what. But my workouts are better after I plunge.
1,000%. I mean, to touch on that one, I think it was Huberman who really highlighted, I don't know if it was a particular study for that or if it was some studies he was a part of, but I know that came kind of from his camp in a way where that really became big on social media, which is true. That one of the things they say is you want to wait, if you're going to do it post, you want to wait about 4 hours or so. That seems to be kind of your safe cushioned time, if you will, after a muscle group workout, right after a heavy lift. I don't believe that is the case for cardiovascular type exercise. Right. I think you're safe doing a cold plunge, very close to after the workout. No, the beforehand, I think, is really truthfully, specifically for muscle growth. There has been some small studies done that show a very, very impactful and like immediate increase in the amount of weight and the amount of reps people are able to do, like specifically right after doing a cold plunge. I'll have to send you some of the studies on there, but there's a couple of small ones, like 3 or 4 different small ones, and the one I just read recently, they did a study on it was compared to cold plunging and then compared to like active recovery. So they were doing like bicycling and things of basically trying to like a low rep type of recovery in between these workout sets. And the people who did cold therapy had like a 20% growth in their reps and or their weight immediately following, both recovery aspects. And so I found that extremely interesting, and I see it and I feel it. I mean, you said it yourself. You feel it like every day, every time, just for my own self, because I'll go to the gym probably 4 or 5 times a week. But every single day when I come out of the cold plunge, I immediately do at least 50 push-ups. I'm trying to go get my record as high as I can in one push-up sitting. Wow. And it is like, I mean, it is night and day. If I try and do this, if I try and do my push-ups before a cold plunge or in the middle of the day, like by like 35, I'm gassed. Like I literally can't, like I can't go beyond it. I've gotten like 38, 39. It's just hard. Yeah, and then I'll do a cold plunge. You've hit your max reps, right? Yes, cold plunge, and I'll come out every single time, and I'll be able to bang out 50, 55. Today I hit 60, which I was super proud of, and I was like, yeah, that's awesome. I'm getting better and better. My goal is to try to hit 100 in one sitting. So it's like, I again, some of these studies are new and they're smaller, and so as the time goes on, as more attention gets pulled into these things, I think they'll be even bigger from even bigger institutions that show the validity of this. But everybody I talk to has those very similar stories. Like, holy, wow, like I feel the strength difference from just doing a cold plunge beforehand and then immediately going into a workout, which is another reason why we want these wellness places and studios getting them, because it's, if you have it at your house or whatever, now you got to have a home gym too, right? Now you got to, you're basically, at the point of, disassociating yourself from society because you're optimizing yourself for biohacking, versus having these places offer them, right, to make it more accessible and to involve, the community aspect into it.
Yep. And then there's one more kind of a sciencey thing I want to touch on, and then let's talk about your company. Sure. Then the other one, and this is referenced in that PubMed article I just read a bit ago, but that's the potential for reduction in adipose tissue or body fat when you're doing the cold plunge. And so I think mechanistically that works by way of the cold activates your body's brown fat, which then essentially recruits blood glucose or blood sugar molecules to produce a process called thermogenesis or thermoregulation, right? Where basically your body has to warm itself back up And in the process of doing so, essentially it burns calories, which then helps to control blood sugar and insulin. So there's kind of different sort of cofactors there that all play into overall health, but the actual burning of energy or calories is mechanistically then what is the potential for a reduction in body fat. And I don't think cold plunging is a significant contributor to reduction in body fat, but it definitely does have an interaction there.
I think it's the tail end of it, right? I mean, I think if you're looking to lose weight, I don't think the first thing you should be doing is saying number one is cold plunge, right? I mean, being honest, I don't think that's going to be the thing to shred you down.
Yeah.
However, I think as you start to get into losing weight and you're thinking, man, what can I do to speed this up? What can I do to find that extra oomph to it? I think that is 110% where cold plunging comes into it. It provides that extra oomph. I heard something, it was from Gary Brecka, something along the lines of, I don't want to misquote it, but it was essentially saying at a given time, in that cold plunge for that specific time frame you're in there is nothing else physically out there, whether it's cardiovascular, weightlifting, etc., that is burning more calories.
Oh, wow.
And so now again, that is for that specific time frame, but still extremely powerful. And again, you don't want to put yourself in there for 20 minutes, but for those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, there's nothing out there that is going to at a rapid pace, right, bring off burn more calories. And so I think it's one of those tail end type conversations, and it's something you can do to add on that could really help somebody's weight loss journey.
Yeah, well, I know Gary Brecka says 3 to 6 minutes is kind of the sweet spot. I didn't recall that in reference specifically to the calorie burn, but that makes sense if that's the sweet spot and that's what he's talking about.
Yes.
So yeah, and I agree exactly. So it's all about stacking, right? You want to lose weight, fine, dial your nutrition, get exercise, figure out your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, how are you going to continue to burn calories by moving when it's not an actual workout? And then you sprinkle in things like doing a cold plunge because it's just a little bit of icing on the weight loss cake.
100%. Icing never hurt nobody.
Hey, my kids love it.
There you go.
All right, let's talk about the cold life, and I'll just go ahead and full disclaimer. I liked my cold plunge so much that I reached out and I became an affiliate. So,
awesome.
So I also have a link that I will share in the show notes, and I believe I have a code that folks that want to get one of your products can use to get a discount. Which I'll put in the show notes for this episode at the superhumanblueprintpodcast.com. So that's my disclaimer that this is also that I now have an affiliation with Cold Life, but that's because I love the product and I love the company. So tell me about the Cold Life. It's an American company, huh?
Yeah. So the Cold Life, we make cold plunges, if that's not clear already. Our philosophy on kind of how to construct these things was a little bit different, I think, than most. And so, when we talk about the Cold Life, the first thing I always try to talk about is more the mission, more than anything else. I think a big part of our mission is to truly introduce culture into cold plunging, try to make it not so much of a taboo thing. And so what can you do, right, to do that? What are some ways that we can kind of incorporate that into our brand? And so if you look at our brand, and we're evolving as day by day goes on and weeks go on, but there's a lot of cool new things we're coming out with. This summer, we're going to release colors. And so, even tapping into just that emotional connection someone might have with a particular color. Maybe it's a college team, maybe it's a particular brand you love, and so we're going to introduce colors to make it a bit more of an engaging and an exciting activity and something that really kind of sparks an emotion inside of somebody. And so we're excited about the colors that are to come. But really, when we started to create this product, we fully believed in really more of a vertical approach. I had tried countless amounts of kind of the horizontal bathtub, wooden structures, right, where you're laying down. I just didn't like it. Personally, I talked to other people, had a very similar experience. It just wasn't, I don't know, just didn't, I mean, it was good. It was cold water, but I just felt like there was so much more to be done in this experience. It just felt like, wow, we could really do something here. And so the short story is we wanted to go the more of a vertical barrel type approach. I can't say the name of the particular cup out there, but there are certainly some inspirations, from a tumbler-esque type of cup, to kind of mimic that feel and that look of doing different colors with the lid on there and making it kind of shaped the way it is. And so that was really an inspiration for us. And then, of course, we knew that, even for someone like yourself or for anybody, no one wants to go down to the gas station and buy ice all the time. You've got to have some equipment that can really keep this water cold and clean for as long as possible. And so we did a lot of R&D on the cleanliness and the research of these chilling equipments. I became way too knowledgeable on chilling equipment, more than I ever thought I would be in the past several years. And so we actually built our own chiller recently that we just launched at the end of last year. And so that is a bit more just kind of a beefed up version of some of our old unit. And so we still offer both, but the new one just kind of more commercial grade, I would say. So it's going to be able to handle more of that, volume inside of those commercial places. You talk about a CrossFit place, having sweaty bodies going in and out of there. Yep. You need to have something a bit more commercial grade. So that's the product part. And then, as we talk about getting into the market, those commercial applications are really a big vision for us as a company. And not because we're not focused on serving Drews and the consumers of the world, because that is a huge piece of our strategy in our market, but ultimately because we know that, people are going to usually get introduced to this in a more of a commercial or public setting. Yep. And so we kind of want to be the staple in that world when people walk into a gym or a public setting. And maybe that place, if you've got the infrastructure to go into the ground and do an in-ground one, we are full proponents of that. I think that's a great idea. It just costs significant amount of money.
Well, there's a huge construction cost to that.
Significant. A lot of plumbing, a lot of engineering, a lot of designing, a lot of construction. Most places don't have the budget for that, nor is it maybe even practical to do in some sense. And so this is really kind of what we feel kind of a best of both worlds, where you're not getting maybe the low end, maybe the consumer grade products that are really popular in the market right now that will typically kind of fail and leak or have these different challenges. If you start to put real volume in them, but you're also not having to pay for a full-on, mechanical engineering and plumbing, team to come in here and plumb up this new in-ground thing. And so we feel like we're kind of in that middle ground there, where we're delivering an experience that's similar to something that you would get in-ground, but is going to cost you significantly less than that. And then just engage the, brand in a new way. We do custom logos. We're coming out with new colors, upgrading features, all the time, every single month. And so really connecting with the brands in a way where they feel empowered to offer this, to their customers. And so it's got to make, financial sense to them. It's got to be on brand for them. It has to be safe for them. And so these are the things that we have internally as a company that we really help these brands with. We help them market them. We provide them with different waivers, different, resources to really make sure that they can, educate people on what it is.
It's a partnership. I love it.
Exactly.
You're not just selling a product. It's a partnership. That's awesome.
100%. 100%. I mean, people love that about our company, is we're really there to really help. We're truly there to help grow, not just our company, but help you grow your own company. Because at the end of the day, we believe this is going to be, like I said, I think it's going to be the next gym wave, right? I mean, there's going to be hundreds, if not thousands, of these different kind of wellness studios, if you will, all across the country. And so we want to be a part of that. We want to be a part of the conversation when it comes to, hey, should we add a cold plunge? Which one should we choose? We really want to be a leader in that sense. And then, of course, that trickles down, right? Because now Drew walks in, or Drew's cousin walks into a place in Philadelphia or New York or Florida or whatever the case may be. He sees this thing. He eventually tries it. And maybe he moves, or maybe he doesn't want to end up paying the monthly membership, whatever the case may be. At some point, you graduate to wanting to get your own. And then we are there. We're here for you. We have our consumer grade product, and it's an amazing product, and it will do an amazing job for you at your house. And so that, I think, is really where it comes for our market and our strategy in the market that seems to be playing out really well. We've got a lot of gyms, a lot of different wellness studios that have it. And then, as I mentioned to you before, we've got a great network of individuals and consumers that we still target and market to, that have an absolute love, for these things. So that's our vision and our story. And we'll come out with some more products and some more upgrades and different types and different shapes, and different kind of cool features we can do along the way. But the premise of kind of making it cool and having an engaging experience, I think, is at the core. And then we can always evolve, into doing different products from there.
That's awesome. And at a superficial level, I know you guys also will put a company logo on the actual tub itself, which, again, it's totally superficial. Like there's no health benefit to that, but it looks really cool.
Of course.
Like I didn't do that for myself because it is more for personal use. I do put my my private coaching clients in there, but I've seen a lot of your social media that shows the different studios that have that, and it looks really good.
It does, man. It does. It's definitely a cool touch. I mean, I even had a local customer come by yesterday, and we're prototyping all the time. So we're always adding stuff and making the product better constantly. And so we did this one kind of interesting feature, and I said, hey, just come by. I always invite people to come by to come check out and trial and get feedback. And he says, man, I just, the way this thing just looks is just like, it's like, just don't touch it. It just looks beautiful. It just has that kind of elegant in it. And, you walk into a room and you see it, it kind of pulls you towards like, dang, what is that thing? It just kind of, it grabs the attention in a way. It looks very clean. It looks very simple. The lines are nice and clean. And so, that's also a big part of our brand too, is we don't, we didn't want to do plastic. We didn't want to do some of the more lower cost options out there. There's plenty of companies out there that offer that already, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just a different part of the market. We wanted to be, hey, if I put this in my house, in my gym, in my studio, in my place, I'm really proud of it. I want it to be a piece people talk about. I want it to be something that looks, can blend in with my environment and belong in a more, higher end wellness environment, a nice backyard, a nice studio, a nice garage. And it really needs to kind of fit the bill there, if you will. And so that's part of a big part of our brand, is to make this thing look beautiful.
They're very eye catching. I mean, certainly in my personal experience, no one's walked by this thing of mine and not seen it and asked what it is and been kind of like, whoa, what is that?
That's awesome, man. That's amazing. I'm glad to hear that.
And so you make them there in Atlanta?
So we have a headquartered. So our office and our team works out of Atlanta. We have a distribution center that's in the same building where I'm at now in Atlanta. Okay. And then we make the product in South Florida right now. So we actually manufacture in Miami. There are some internal talks about moving down there. Whether we move the whole team or just parts of it are still yet to be determined here. But it looks like at some point here in the summertime, some people, some infrastructure of the Cold Life will be down in Miami. Just for the simple fact that we work so close with our manufacturer. They're basically a part of our team. I mean, they're great. They're amazing, great people. And so, we kind of look at ourselves as the OEM, as the manufacturer, because we're just so involved, and we designed it, engineered it, we make all the changes. And so, we like to have that intimate relationship where it can be quick. You can try things out, you can test things, you can get feedback really quick. And so that's on the horizon this summer.
Cool. That's awesome. Well, like I said, I love the product. I really admire your company. I like what you're doing with it. I appreciate, Scott, who's been kind of my liaison there. He's been great to work with. So shout out to Scott. And I will, like I said, I will link to the Cold Life in the show notes for today's episode, so anyone can go click on that and check out your products. It's got your company story on there, and everything else you could ask for. Kyle, it's been really nice catching up with you. It's been nice talking and kind of chatting about cold and biohacking and the Cold Life.
Yes, sir. It's been amazing, man. Thank you for having me on, Drew. I hope people get some value out of this.
Yes, sir. All right. Take care.
All right, Drew. Bye-bye.